I never thought a second phone would be the thing that tore my world apart, but my husband didn't hide a phone in the garage. No, my best friend tried to hide a lie that was even more dangerous, and it all started with a text message about the weather. Let me take you back to where it all began. I'm 29, married to my husband for 4 years, together for 7. We have a 2-year-old. I met my best friend Sarah when I was 11, right after my family moved to a new country. My sister-in-law introduced us and we clicked instantly. Through middle school, high school, college, and into adulthood, Sarah was my person. We shared some friends but also had our own separate groups. I thought I knew her better than anyone. I work in an office from 9 to 2 with a 30-minute break. Sometimes I walk 5 minutes to my husband's office for a quick coffee, sometimes I hit a cafe nearby. On the occasional work trip, I'd mention it to Sarah in casual conversation. No big deal, just friends keeping each other in the loop. Last week, I had a work trip scheduled for Wednesday to a city about 2 hours away. But Tuesday night, a red weather alert came through for the entire region. Flood warnings, stay indoors, the whole deal. My work trip got canceled. So Wednesday morning, I woke up at my usual time, got my toddler breakfast, and settled in for a day at home. My husband left at 6 a.m. to check on his business, put up flood protection, and he was back by 7:30 making scrambled eggs. The rain didn't even start until 1 p.m. We spent the day inside, playing with our kid, napping, watching movies. Boring domestic bliss. At 3 p.m., Sarah texted me. She asked if I was home already because the city I was supposed to be traveling to was flooding. I replied, home safe. Didn't think anything of it. We didn't leave the house until Friday. Saturday morning, Sarah and I went to our usual gym class. Afterward, she pulled me aside and said we needed to talk in private. We sat in my car in the parking lot. She looked serious, almost nervous. Then she dropped the bomb. On Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out and your kid was in the car. I froze, my heart stopped. For a second I saw it, my husband, my baby, some blonde stranger, but then my brain caught up. I remembered Wednesday. I remembered every second of that day. My husband never left, he made breakfast. We watched cartoons, he fixed the squeaky door. There was no way. I asked her, are you sure it was this Wednesday? She nodded 3 times. Yes, I'm sure. What time? Around 11 a.m. during the red alert? Yes. Are you 100% sure? She launched into a description. My husband making out with a gorgeous blonde Barbie lookalike in a parked car near the mall. She said our toddler was in the back seat. She went on and on about the kisses, the hands, the whole scene. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just sat there processing. Then I said, Sarah, I was home all day Wednesday. My husband was with me, he never left. The rain didn't start until 1. We were eating pancakes at 11. Her face went pale, she blinked then scrambled. Oh, maybe it was Tuesday or Thursday. You said 3 times it was Wednesday, she started stammering. I must have mixed up the days. I saw it, I swear it was definitely him. But I knew she was lying, not just mistaken lying, because I had proof. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I took that morning, me and my husband and our baby all in our pajamas grinning at the camera. Timestamp 11:07 a.m. Wednesday. She didn't look at the screen, she looked at the floor. Why are you doing this? I asked. She said she didn't know. She said she was trying to protect me. She said she thought she saw him. But the more she talked, the more the story fell apart. She couldn't tell me what car they were in. She couldn't tell me what the woman was wearing. She just kept repeating that my husband was cheating. I told her I needed space. I drove home shaking. My husband was in the living room playing with our kid. I told him everything. He looked shocked, then angry, then just sad. He said, why would she do that? That night, I didn't sleep. I went over every conversation, every moment of our friendship. I thought about how Sarah had been distant lately. How she'd made little comments about my marriage being too perfect. How she'd asked about our money, our plans, our future. I thought about the time she joked that I'd be a good single mom. I laughed it off then. Now it didn't seem funny. The next day, I texted her. I said I needed the truth. She replied with a long apology. She said she'd been jealous, that I had the life she wanted, a husband, a kid, a career, that she thought if she could break us apart, maybe I'd have more time for her. Travel, girls' nights, the way we used to be before the baby. I couldn't believe it. My best friend of 18 years tried to destroy my marriage because she wanted more of my attention. She didn't care if my kid lost a father. She didn't care if my husband's reputation got ruined. She just wanted me to herself. I blocked her number. I told our mutual friends what happened. Most of them were horrified. A couple said maybe I was being too harsh, that she made a mistake. I asked them if they'd still say that if I had believed her and divorced my husband. They went quiet. It's been 3 weeks. I still feel sick when I think about it. I keep checking my husband's phone even though I know he did nothing wrong. The trust, not in him, but in the world, feels shattered. How do you ever trust anyone again when the person who knew you best tried to break you? I've started therapy. My husband is supportive. He says he forgives me for doubting him, even for a second. But I can't forgive myself, and I definitely can't forgive Sarah. So no, my husband didn't hide a second phone, but my best friend hid a lie that could have ended everything. And the only notification I got was her text asking if I was home safe. That text ironically saved my marriage, because if she hadn't messaged me, I might have believed her story. I might have fallen for it. I guess some betrayals come with a warning label. You just have to read between the lines. That story still haunts me, but I've learned a hard lesson about friendship. You'd think after something like that, the universe would give you a break. Nope. A few months later, I found myself in another nightmare, this time at work. And it wasn't a friend trying to sabotage me, it was a coworker who wanted my job so badly she tried to prove I wasn't really disabled. Let me back up. I'm 32, black, and I live in Texas. I have a condition called chronic pain. The way I explain it to people who don't have it is like this. Imagine pain on a scale of 1 to 10. Normal people walk around at a 1 or 2, maybe a 3 after a bad night's sleep. For me, my baseline is a 6 every single day. It's like that dull ache you get after pulling a muscle, but it never goes away. Some days I spike to an 8 or 9, and on those days I use a cane or my handicap placard. Rare blessed days I drop to a 4 and I feel like I'm flying. I have a full-time job and a part-time gig doing assistant coordinator work. My full-time is 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. My part-time is evenings and weekends, but I love it. It keeps me busy, helps with my anxiety, and pads my savings. When I was hired, I filed all the proper disability paperwork with HR. I have a handicap marker on my license plate, a placard on my rearview mirror, the works. My boss Amy is amazing. She's supportive, fair, and she never questions my limits. But my coworker Casey, different story. Casey and I have the same position, assistant coordinator to Amy. Casey has wanted a promotion for years. Everyone knows it. She works late, takes on extra projects, brown noses the higher-ups. I made it clear from day one that I don't want a promotion. My part-time job is exactly that, part-time. If I got promoted, it would become full-time, and I already have a full-time job. Plus, I like where I am. The work is manageable, the team is good, and I don't need the stress. But Casey saw me as a threat. Maybe she thought I was coasting or that my disability gave me some unfair advantage like lighter duties. The truth is I didn't ask for any accommodations except occasional flexibility with my schedule when I had doctor's appointments. I do the same work as Casey, same hours, same deadlines, but she couldn't stand it. It started small. She'd make comments like, "You're so lucky you get to park up front," or "Must be nice to take a break whenever you need it." I'd shrug it off. Then one day in December, I had a bad flare-up. I was at a 7, bad enough that I used my cane at work. That afternoon, I had to run a personal errand during my lunch break. I parked in a handicapped spot at the grocery store, walked in with my cane, grabbed what I needed, and walked back to my car. No big deal. But when I got back to the office, Casey was waiting for me. She had her phone in her hand, smirking. "I saw you at the store," she said. "You were walking just fine, no cane, no limp. You even jogged across the parking lot when it started raining." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" "I used my cane the whole time." She held up her phone. She recorded me. The video showed me walking from the store entrance toward my car. I did have my cane, but at one point I switched it to my left hand while I fumbled for my keys. I was walking normally, no limp, no wincing. The rain had started, so I did a sort of quick shuffle, not a jog. It lasted maybe 10 seconds. "I'm sending this to HR," she said. "You're faking it. You don't need that placard. You're taking advantage of the system." My heart pounded. I told her to delete the video. She refused. I went straight to Amy and explained everything. Amy was livid. She told me not to worry, she'd handle it. But Casey had already forwarded the video to HR and corporate. She'd even posted it to the company Slack group, claiming I was abusing disability benefits. The next few days were a nightmare. HR called me in for a meeting. I brought my disability paperwork, my doctor's notes, my pain journal. I explained that chronic pain isn't constant. Some days I'm fine, some days I'm not. Using a cane doesn't mean I can't walk, it means walking hurts less. The video showed me on a good day, but that day I still had my cane with me. I used it inside the store. The 10 seconds of walking to my car without it wasn't a lie. HR said they'd investigate. Meanwhile, Casey kept recording me. She'd follow me to the parking lot, film me getting in and out of my car. She'd watch me at my desk and take notes. I felt like I was being stalked. I reported it to the police, but they told me it was a workplace issue, not a criminal one. I filed a complaint with the EEOC. That's still pending. Amy put a stop to Casey's behavior by banning phones on the floor, but the damage was done. People started looking at me differently. A few coworkers asked if I was really disabled. My work performance reviews got flagged because of concerns about accommodations. I was terrified I'd lose my part-time job, the one job where I felt valued. Then last week I got an update. Casey was formally reprimanded for harassment and invasion of privacy. She was moved to a different department far away from me. But there was a catch. She wasn't fired, she's still with the company, and I have to see her in the hall sometimes. She glares at me like I'm the villain. I'm still dealing with the fallout. I got a lawyer. My therapist told me to focus on what I can control. But I can't shake the feeling that no matter how much paperwork I file, some people will always think I'm faking it. The worst part, Casey never apologized. She still insists she was right. She still thinks I'm a fraud. So yeah, I'm overreacting. No, I'm not overreacting. I'm protecting my job, my reputation, and my sanity. And if you ever think about recording a disabled person to prove they're not really suffering, don't. You don't know their story, you don't know the pain they live with every single day, and you definitely don't know how it feels to have your entire existence questioned because of a 10-second video. I'm still fighting, but at least now I know who my real enemies are, and I'm not letting them win. I never thought my husband would ask me to help him impregnate his best friend. But here we are sitting at our kitchen table, the same table where we'd celebrated our anniversary 2 months ago, and he's looking at me like I'm the unreasonable one. Let me back up. I'm 32, I'm an emergency medicine doctor, and I've wanted to be a doctor since I was 12. My husband, Mark, is a civil engineer. He's good at his job, but he doesn't love it. He loves his hobbies, our relationship, his friends. We've been married 4 years, together for 7. We bought our first condo together 2 years ago. Life was good. Then about 14 months ago, Mark started pushing for a baby. He was 31, his friends were having kids, his brother had just had a second. He wanted that, I didn't. I was finally hitting my stride at work. My shifts were getting easier, I was up for a senior attending position, and I loved my team. But I didn't tell him that, I was a coward. We never disagreed about big stuff, so I kept my mouth shut, convinced myself it wouldn't be a huge sacrifice, and we got pregnant. I was miserable from the start. The nausea, the fatigue, the weight gain, I hated it. I hated myself for hating it. I didn't feel connected to the pregnancy at all. I started seeing a therapist, and she told me straight up that I was holding resentment against this baby because I was more worried about my career. She was right, I worked on it. By month 6, I was finally excited. We depainted the nursery yellow, picked out a name, Liam. Mark was over the moon, we were in a better place. Then at 7 months, I had a hemorrhage. They did an emergency C-section. Liam was stillborn, and the complications destroyed my uterus. My chances of ever getting pregnant again are less than 1%. I knew deep in my gut that I would never carry a baby to term. After the initial shock, the physical recovery, the endless sobbing in the shower, I felt a strange relief. Not that my baby died, no, that will always be a scar, but the pressure was off. I didn't have to be a mother. I could throw myself back into work, focus on my patients, rebuild my career. Mark seemed to handle it okay. He grieved, but he was supportive. He said we'd figure it out. Adoption, surrogacy, whatever, we'd still have a family. I started working longer hours. I took extra trauma shifts. I was in the ER at 3 in the morning on Christmas Eve, and I loved it. It was my escape. Mark stayed home, worked on his woodworking projects, hung out with his friends. He'd text me sweet messages. I thought we were healing. Then last Tuesday, I came home at 9 p.m. after a double shift. Mark was in the living room with his friend Jessica. She's been his best friend since college. She's a graphic designer, very bubbly, always laughing. I'd always liked her. But that night she seemed nervous, barely meeting my eyes. Mark asked me to sit down. He had this intense look, like he'd rehearsed something. I've been thinking, he said, about our family, about what we lost, and I think I have a solution. I was exhausted. I just wanted a shower and sleep. But I said, okay, what is it? He glanced at Jessica. She nodded, then he said, we want to have a baby together. Jessica's willing to be the surrogate, but we thought it would be better if we, did it naturally. No clinics, no legal stuff, just a real family. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just stared at him, then I looked at Jessica. She was still not meeting my eyes. You want to sleep with her, I said, not a question. It's not like that, Mark said quickly. It's for us, for our family. You can't get pregnant, but she can. And she's single, she's not looking for a partner. She said she'd give us the baby, we'd all be co-parents. You'd be the mother, I'd be the father, she'd be the aunt. It's perfect. Perfect. The word hung in the air like a bad smell. I asked Jessica if she was okay with this. She finally looked up. I love you guys, she said. And I want to help. I'm not interested in Mark romantically. This is just biological, I didn't know, I still don't know. I told Mark I needed to think. I went to the bedroom, locked the door, and sat on the floor for an hour. I thought about our wedding day, how he promised to be with me through sickness and health. I thought about Liam, how we held him for 5 minutes before they took him away. I thought about my dead uterus and how now even my husband saw it as a liability. The next morning I told Mark no. I said I wasn't comfortable with him having sex with Jessica, even for a baby. I said we should look into adoption or IVF with a donor, egg, and surrogate. He got defensive. He said IVF would cost tens of thousands, adoptions take years, and Jessica was offering this for free. He said I was being selfish. Selfish, I said. I'm selfish because I don't want you to fuck your best friend. It's not fucking, he yelled. It's making a baby for us, for our family. We argued for 3 days. He brought up Jessica at the dinner table, in the car, in bed. He showed me pictures of babies on his phone. He said he was 32 and his biological clock was ticking. He said I didn't care about his needs because I was obsessed with my job. He said maybe if I'd been home more, we'd have caught the stillbirth earlier. That's when I stopped feeling guilty and started feeling cold. I called my sister, she's a family lawyer. She told me that if I didn't agree, he could divorce me and try to have a child with someone else anyway. She said I should protect myself. I called a therapist who specializes in infertility. She asked how I felt about the baby idea, and I told her the truth. I didn't want a child anymore. I was okay with being child-free. I had lost both my baby and my desire to be a mother. That hurt Mark even more. Last night, I came home from a late shift. Mark was on the couch scrolling on his phone. I sat across from him and said, I want a divorce. He looked up, shocked. Because of Jessica? Because you chose her over me. You chose the idea of a baby over the reality of our marriage. You asked me to let you cheat on me, and when I said no, you called me selfish. He stared at me. Then he said, I'm not leaving you. I love you. I just thought this would bring us closer. It's been 24 hours. He's been crying, apologizing, saying he'll block Jessica, do anything. He even texted her that it's off, that he can't do it. She didn't reply. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to believe he was just desperate, grieving, manipulated by his own pain. But another part of me remembers that cold look in his eyes when he told me we should make a baby naturally. He didn't think of my body as a partner. He thought of it as a broken machine. I'm sleeping in the guest room. My lawyer is drawing up papers. My therapist says I need space to process. And Jessica, she sent me a text this morning. I'm sorry, I thought I was helping. I haven't replied, so that's where I am. My husband wanted to impregnate his friend, and now our marriage is hanging by a thread. Maybe we can fix it, maybe we can't. But I know one thing for sure, I will never again keep my mouth shut about what I want. My career, my body, my choice. If that makes me selfish, then fine. I'd rather be selfish than be a doormat. I thought I was overreacting at first when Sarah pulled me aside after gym class. We'd been best friends since I moved to this country at age 11. My sister-in-law introduced us and we clicked instantly. School, sleepovers, college, weddings, we did it all together. By 29, we had this comfortable friendship where we didn't need to talk every day, but we knew each other's lives. She knew my husband, knew my 2-year-old, knew my work schedule. I thought that meant she had my back. But that Saturday, she was shaking. We were both sweating from spin class and she grabbed my arm and said, "We need to talk privately." So we went to my car and she leaned in, voice low, like she was about to drop a bomb. "On Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out and your kid was in the car." My stomach dropped. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Then I remembered Wednesday, the red alert, the flooding. I worked from home that day. My husband left at 6 in the morning to put up flood barriers at his business, came back by 7:30 and made us pancakes. We spent the whole day inside because the rain didn't even start until 1 p.m. My son played with his blocks on the living room floor while my husband and I binged a Netflix show. There was no way he was making out with anyone at 11 a.m. I asked Sarah 3 times if she was sure it was Wednesday. She said yes each time and gave me this detailed description of my husband kissing a gorgeous blonde in a parking lot, my son strapped in his car seat in the back. She described the blonde's dress, the way my husband had his hand on her hip. It was too specific. That's when I knew she was lying. I didn't confront her right there. I just said, "Okay, thanks for telling me," and went home. My husband was in the garage fixing his bike. I told him what she said. He looked confused, then hurt, then angry. "Why would she make that up?" he asked. I didn't have an answer. I messaged Sarah that night. "Hey, I just want to clarify. Wednesday, you said 11 a.m. I was home all day with my husband and son because of the weather. Are you sure it wasn't a different day?" She replied, "Oh, maybe I got the day wrong." It was definitely last week, though. But I knew she was backtracking because I checked our text history. She had specifically asked me Wednesday afternoon if I was home safe from my work trip. She knew I wasn't traveling that day. She knew I was home. I called her out. I said, "You texted me that day asking if I made it home from a trip I didn't take. You knew I was home. Why would you lie?" She didn't respond for 2 hours. Then she sent a long message about how she was just looking out for me and maybe she misinterpreted what she saw, but the damage was done. I started thinking back. Over the past year, she'd made little comments about my husband, how he worked too much, how he didn't help enough with the kid, how I deserved better. I thought she was just being a protective friend. Now I wondered if she was planting seeds. I told my husband I wanted to cut her off. He agreed, but I couldn't let it go. I asked our mutual friends if they'd noticed anything weird. One of them said Sarah had been asking about my marriage a lot, and she'd even said something like, "It's so sad that Op gave up her career for the baby. I'd never let a man trap me like that." But I didn't give up my career. I work part-time from home. I never got a real reason from Sarah. She ghosted me after that. It's been 2 months. I heard through the grapevine that she told someone I was too controlling and that my husband was miserable. But my husband and I are fine, better than fine. We're cooking dinner together, we're planning a weekend away. The only thing that changed is that I no longer have a best friend. That was when I realized some people don't need a reason to hurt you. They just want to see if they can. And the scary part, she almost believed her own lie. I still don't understand why, but I don't need to. I have my family, she has her stories. I wish I could say that was the worst betrayal I've ever witnessed, but a few months later I read a post from a woman who had it even worse. She had a condition called chronic pain. She described it as living at a 6 on the pain scale every day where most people are at a 2 or 3. She could function, she could work, she walked with canes only on bad days. She had a handicap placard on her car and all the legal paperwork filed at her job for accommodations. She worked 2 jobs, one full-time and a part-time assistant coordinator position at a different office. That second job was her way to pad her savings and keep busy, because staying busy helped with her anxiety. She loved her team. Her boss Amy was great. Her colleague Casey, though, was ambitious. Casey wanted a promotion to be a full-time coordinator, the same job the OOP held as an assistant. OOP didn't want that promotion. She already had a full-time job, but Casey apparently didn't believe her. Casey thought OOP was faking her disability to get special treatment to coast to steal her chance. It started small. Casey would make comments like, "Must be nice to leave early for doctor's appointments." OOP would just shrug it off. Then one Friday, OOP had a high-pain day. She used her cane to walk from the parking lot to the building. She limped into the office and Casey was already there typing on her phone. Later that day, Amy pulled OOP aside and said Casey had gone to HR, claiming OOP was using a cane one day and running marathons the next. OOP almost laughed. She couldn't run a marathon if you put a gun to her head. Her pain wasn't consistent. Some days she could walk without a cane. Some days she needed two. That's how chronic pain works. She sent Amy medical documentation and Amy shut it down, but Casey didn't stop. The next week, OOP went to pick up takeout from a restaurant near her office. She was having a good day, pain at a 4, which for her was a blessing. She parked, walked in without her cane, ordered food, and walked back to her car. The next morning, Casey emailed the entire department a link to a video. The subject line, proof of fraud. It was a cell phone recording of OOP walking into the restaurant, taken from a car across the street. Casey had followed her. Casey had waited for days outside OOP's workplace in a different car watching. She caught OOP on a good day and thought that was enough to prove she was a liar. OOP felt her blood go cold. She went straight to HR, but it was a small company without a strong policy on stalking. The police wouldn't take a report because no explicit threat was made. Casey claimed she was just documenting evidence for a complaint. Boss Amy tried to fire Casey, but corporate legal blocked it, saying they needed to follow due process. For 2 months, OOP had to see Casey every day in the same small office. Casey would glare at her. OOP started taking different routes to her car. She got a dash cam. She told her full-time employer about the situation and they offered to let her work from home more. She took them up on it. The update came a few weeks later. Casey was finally fired, not for the stalking, not for the video, but for falsifying her own time sheets. She had been clocking in and out for shifts she never worked and the security camera footage caught it. HR used that as the reason, avoiding any lawsuit about discrimination. OOP got a restraining order because the stalking still scared her. She said in the post that she never wanted revenge, she just wanted to be believed. And in the end, the system worked even if it took a different path. She moved to a different location, blocked Casey everywhere, and spent the next 6 months just breathing easier. I thought I had seen the worst of what people could do to each other, but then I stumbled onto a post that made my blood run cold. I was scrolling through a forum late one night, 2 in the morning, couldn't sleep because I kept replaying Sarah's lie in my head, and I found this woman's story. She was an emergency medicine doctor, 32 years old, married for 4 years, together for 7. Her husband was a civil engineer who was more into his hobbies and friends than his career. She loved her work, it was her passion since she was 12, and they had just bought their first condo together. But then her husband started pushing for a baby. She didn't want one. She was finally hitting her stride at work. She loved their life as a couple, but she was a coward, she admitted it. She never told him how she really felt. She just kept her mouth shut and convinced herself it wouldn't be a huge sacrifice. So they got pregnant and she was miserable from day one. Pregnancy did not suit her. She felt disconnected, resentful, and sought out therapy. Her therapist told her she was holding resentment against the baby because she was more worried about her career than her unborn child. And she was right. She worked on it, and by month 6, she was actually excited. She and her husband were in a better place. Everything was going well until it was. At 7 months, her baby was born stillborn, and the complications nearly killed her. She had some horrible physical trauma that left her with an incredibly low chance of ever getting pregnant again. She knew deep down she was never getting pregnant. After the initial shock, after recovering from the physical and emotional nightmare, she felt a strange relief. She didn't want to admit it, but she wasn't devastated about the infertility. She was devastated about the baby, but the infertility part felt almost like a door closing that she hadn't wanted to walk through anyway. She thought maybe she and her husband could move forward, adopt, foster, just stay together. She told him she couldn't have kids and he said he needed time to process. That was fair. But 6 weeks later, he came to her with a proposal. He said, "I've been talking to my friend Emily. She's offered to be a surrogate. She'll carry our baby. We can use your eggs if we can get them, or we can use a donor, or you can be the legal mother after birth. She wants to help." The OOP was floored. She had never met Emily. She asked how this came up, and her husband said he had confided in Emily about their situation, and Emily offered. The OOP asked if he had already discussed details without her. He admitted he had, that they had talked about it a few times. That was when everything felt wrong. She said no. She said she wasn't ready, she didn't want another pregnancy, she didn't want a baby right now, maybe never. She wanted to grieve first, she wanted to focus on her career and her marriage. Her husband got angry. He said she was being selfish, that she had never wanted children, that she was relieved the baby died. She said that was a cruel thing to say, but he kept pushing. "We can do this together. Emily is willing, it's perfect." She said, "We can't, I don't want to." He didn't let it go. For 3 weeks, every conversation came back to surrogacy. He showed her pictures of Emily, talked about how healthy she was, how she had 2 kids of her own and knew what she was doing. He printed out a schedule for ovulation cycles and insemination dates. He even asked his mother to talk to the OOP. His mother called and said, "He just wants to be. You should support him, don't hold him back." The OOP felt like she was losing her mind. She asked her husband, "What about me? What about what I want? I just lost our baby, I almost died." Can we just breathe? He said he was breathing, but time was running out. Emily's offer wouldn't last forever. That's when she found a text on his phone. He had sent Emily a message. I think I can convince her. She just needs to see how happy this will make us. And Emily replied, if she says no, are we still good to go through with the IUI? The OOP confronted him. He said the IUI wasn't an affair, it was just a medical procedure. She said he was planning to impregnate his friend without her consent. He said she was overreacting. She said, I want a divorce. He cried, he begged, he said he loved her, that he was just desperate, that he would cut off Emily. He blocked her number right there in front of her. He quit his job. He said he would do anything, but the damage was done. The OOP stayed in the house for 2 weeks, sleeping in the guest room. She talked to a lawyer. She talked to her therapist. She realized that even if he stopped, she would never unsee those messages. She filed for divorce. The last update was him moving out. He kept saying he made a mistake, that he was manipulated by his friend while grieving. She said she understood that, but she couldn't be with someone who would try to force a baby through another woman behind her back. She said she was focusing on her career, on healing, on reclaiming her body and her life. She ended the post with, I still don't know if I want kids, but I know I don't want them with someone who doesn't respect my no. Reading that, I sat in the dark of my own kitchen, phone glowing in my hand, and I thought about how close that could have been. My husband wasn't like that, he never pushed me, but I thought about Sarah and I thought about how people can twist grief and love into a weapon. That woman didn't deserve any of it, and neither did I. I'm just glad I saw the lie before it could grow into something worse. I thought I had my head on straight after that whole mess with Sarah. I thought I knew what betrayal looked like. But then I found myself reading another story, one that made me realize how easy it is for someone to twist the truth into a weapon, especially when they want what you have. This woman, she worked a full-time job and a part-time job on the side. She had chronic pain. Not the kind you can see, not the kind where you limp or grimace all the time. The kind where every day feels like you've pulled a muscle in your back and you just keep moving anyway because what else are you gonna do? She had a handicap placard. She had canes she only used on the bad days, the days when the pain hit a 7 or 8 out of 10. And she had a coworker named Casey. Casey wanted a promotion. Everyone knew it. And everyone knew this woman, the one with the chronic pain, didn't want that promotion. She liked her part-time job, she liked the extra savings, she liked her boss Amy. She had no interest in climbing the ladder, but Casey saw her as competition anyway because they were the same position. And in Casey's mind, anyone who could take that promotion was a threat. It started small. Casey would make comments. You're using that cane today, didn't see you use it yesterday. Or wow, you parked in the handicap spot, that's lucky you got a pass. Nothing overt, nothing you could report. Just little digs that made this woman feel like she had to defend her own body every single day. Then it escalated. This woman had a bad day, a real bad day. Pain at an 8, maybe a 9. She used her cane, she parked in the handicap spot, she limped through the office trying not to wince. And at lunch, she decided to take a walk to get some fresh air, hoping it would loosen up her muscles. She was walking slowly, not limping as bad because the movement helped. And she saw Casey, standing behind a bush, holding her phone up, filming her. She froze. Casey lowered the phone and smiled. Just getting some fresh air, she said. This woman didn't scream. She didn't confront her right there. She went back inside, her heart pounding, and she told her boss Amy what she saw. Amy's face went pale. She said she'd talk to Casey. But Casey had an answer for everything. She said she was just checking the weather on her phone. She said she didn't see this woman at all. She said it was a misunderstanding. But this woman knew what she saw. She knew that look on Casey's face. She started taking different routes to her car. She started leaving work at different times. She told her husband, and he was furious. He wanted to call the police. She said no, she didn't have proof. It was just her word against Casey's. A week later, she got a call from HR. Casey had filed a complaint against her. She claimed the handicap placard was fraudulent. She claimed the chronic pain was fake. She submitted a video of this woman walking without her cane in a parking lot, claiming it was proof of fraud. That video was taken at the exact same spot where Casey had been filming. The timestamp matched. This woman felt like the ground had opened up under her feet. She was being investigated for disability fraud. She had doctor's notes, she had years of medical records, she had a legal diagnosis. But Casey's little video was enough to make HR put her on leave while they investigated. For 2 weeks, she sat at home waiting. She couldn't sleep. She kept replaying that moment in the parking lot, wondering if she should have said something, done something, screamed. Her husband held her while she cried. She called her lawyer. She contacted her primary care physician. She gathered every piece of paper that proved her condition was real. The investigation cleared her. Of course it did. But it took 2 weeks of her life. 2 weeks of anxiety, 2 weeks of feeling like a criminal in her own body. And when she came back to work, Casey was still there. Still smiling, still taking videos. This woman went to the police. She filed a report for stalking. The officer listened, nodded, and said there wasn't enough evidence for a restraining order. No explicit threat had been made. Casey's lawyer said it was documenting evidence for a complaint. The police shrugged. She went to HR again. Boss Amy tried to fire Casey, but corporate legal said they needed to follow due process. They needed more evidence. So this woman started documenting everything. Every time Casey looked at her wrong, every time she saw a phone pointed in her direction, She carried a journal, she saved every email, she changed her schedule, she stopped eating lunch in the break room. For 2 months, she worked in that small office with Casey glaring at her from across the room. She started arriving early and leaving late to avoid the parking lot. She installed a dashcam. She told her full-time employer about the situation and they offered to let her work from home more. She took it. Then finally, something broke. Security cameras caught Casey clocking in for shifts she never worked. She'd swipe her badge and then leave, come back to swipe out. She'd been falsifying her time sheets for months. That was the reason HR used to fire her, not the stalking, not the disability harassment, timesheet fraud. The woman got her restraining order after that. The stalking was a pattern and the timesheet fraud proved Casey was dishonest. The judge granted it. Casey moved to a different company. This woman stayed, moved to a different location, and spent the next 6 months just breathing easier. She said in her post that she never wanted revenge. She just wanted to be believed. And she was eventually, but it took a broken system and a lucky break to get there. Reading that, I thought about how fragile it all is. How someone can decide you're a threat and spend months trying to tear you down and the only thing that saves you is a piece of luck. I still think about Sarah sometimes, where she is now. If she's found someone else to lie about, I don't know if she's sorry. I don't know if she even understands what she did wrong. But I know that I see people differently now. I see the little glances, the overeager questions about my schedule, the way some people's eyes light up when I mention a vulnerability. I'm more careful now. I don't tell anyone my exact travel plans. I don't post my location on social media. I keep my circle small. My husband knows everything. My sister knows the basics. And I keep living my life one day at a time, grateful that I saw the lie before it could become something worse. It was around that time that I found myself scrolling late one night, unable to sleep, and I stumbled onto a story that made me feel like I was going to be sick. It was about a doctor, an emergency medicine doctor who had been married for 4 years, together for 7. Her husband was a civil engineer, nice guy, loved his hobbies, loved his friends. She loved her job. She wanted to be a doctor since she was 12 and she'd made it happen. She was finally hitting her stride at work. They just bought their first condo. Life was good. But then her husband started pushing for a baby. She wasn't ready. She didn't say anything because she was a coward and they'd never really disagreed before. So she kept her mouth shut and got pregnant, and she was miserable. Pregnancy did not suit her. She felt disconnected, resented the baby, went to therapy. Her therapist told her she was holding resentment because she was more worried about her career than her unborn child. She worked on that. By month 6, she was excited. She and her husband were in a better place. Then at 7 months, she had a stillbirth, complications. The doctors told her the chances of ever getting pregnant again were incredibly low, like basically zero. She was devastated, but also in a weird way relieved. Not that the baby died, God no, but that the pregnancy nightmare was over. She threw herself back into work. She started to heal. She thought her husband was healing too. Then about 3 months after the stillbirth, he came home one night and sat her down at the kitchen table. They had leftover pasta from the night before. He picked at his fork for a minute and then said, "I've been thinking we need to talk about building our family." She said, "You know the doctors said it's not possible for me." He nodded, then he said, "I know, so I was thinking what if we used a surrogate? My friend Rachel, she offered. She said she'd carry our baby." Rachel was a woman he worked with. They'd had lunch together a few times. She'd come over for dinner once. She was single, no kids, in her late 20s. She'd always been friendly, but this woman hadn't thought anything of it. She stared at her husband. "You want us to impregnate your coworker?" He said. "Not me, us. We'd be this baby's parents. She's just carrying it. She's doing it for us." She said, "Did you ask her before you asked me?" He looked down. He said, "I mentioned it a few times. She said she'd be open to it." She felt like she couldn't breathe. She asked him if they'd discussed it in detail. He said yes. She asked if he'd told Rachel about her medical history. He said yes. She asked if he'd considered adoption. He said adoption was expensive and complicated and he wanted a biological child. She asked if he'd considered that she might not want another pregnancy, even via surrogate, because of the trauma. He said he understood, but he thought this was the best way. She said she needed space. He said she was overreacting. She went to the bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed, shaking. She didn't cry. She just sat there staring at the wall, trying to understand how her husband had gone from grieving a stillbirth to planning a baby with another woman without ever asking her what she wanted. She stayed in that bedroom for 3 hours. He knocked twice. She didn't answer. Finally, she came out. He was on the couch, watching TV like nothing had happened. She said, "I'm not doing this." He muted the TV. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm not carrying a baby. I'm not having a surrogate. I'm not having another baby with you, period. I can't. I don't want to. And if that means you want to leave, then leave." He got angry. He said she was being selfish. He said she was letting her career destroy their marriage. He said she never really wanted the baby anyway. He said the stillbirth was a sign that she wasn't meant to be a mother. She didn't scream. She said, "I need you to leave the house." He said, "I'm not going anywhere." She called her sister. Her sister came over within 20 minutes. She stood in the doorway and told her husband to pack a bag and leave. He started crying. He said he was sorry. He said he didn't mean it. He said he was just grieving too and he wanted a family so badly and Rachel had offered and he thought it was a solution. She didn't care. She said, "You planned a baby with another woman behind my back while I was still recovering from losing ours. There is no coming back from that." He left. He stayed at his brother's place. She filed for divorce the next week. Her friends were shocked. Her parents thought she was being hasty, but she knew. She knew that if she stayed, she would always be second to his dream of biological fatherhood. She would always wonder if he resented her. She would always be the woman who couldn't give him a baby. The divorce took 6 months. He tried to reconcile. He sent flowers. He sent texts. He said he would go to therapy. He said he would give up on having kids. She said it was too late. The trust was gone. He'd shown her that when push came to shove, he would choose a fantasy family over her reality. After the divorce, she threw herself back into work. She got promoted. She traveled. She bought her own condo. She started dating casually. She never wanted another serious relationship, she said, not for a long time. She learned to be okay alone. She posted an update years later saying she was happy. She had a small circle of friends. She had a cat. She worked 80-hour weeks and loved every minute of it. She said she still thought about that baby sometimes, the one she lost. But she didn't think about her ex-husband. She said she'd rather be alone than be with someone who saw her as a broken vessel. That story haunted me for days. I'd think about it while I was brushing my teeth while I was driving to work. That woman's husband hadn't hit her. He hadn't cheated, not in the usual way, but he had replaced her in his mind. He had already started building a family without her. He had asked permission later, but the decision had already been made. I thought about my own marriage. My husband, the man who didn't have a second phone, who came home and made breakfast, who looked at me like I was the only person in the world. I thought about how easily love can turn into something transactional. How quickly a partner can decide what you owe them. I held him a little tighter that night. I told him about the story. He said, "That's insane. I would never do that." And I believed him. But I also knew that none of us ever think it'll happen to us. Not until it does. I'm grateful I never had to find out. I'm grateful that the worst lie I faced was from a friend, not from the man I married. I don't know where Sarah is now. I don't know if she's sorry, but I know that I see more clearly now. I pay attention to the small things. The way someone says we instead of you. The way they start planning without asking. The way they assume you'll fall in line. That woman, the doctor, she didn't fall in line. She drew a line and she walked away. I hope I'd have the courage to do the same. I thought I was done with stories about betrayal from people you trust. But then I remembered another one that made me realize how far some people will go to tear you down. This one wasn't about a best friend or a husband. It was about a coworker. And it started with something I never would have expected, a disabled parking placard. I have chronic pain. I don't look disabled. That's the thing. When people see me walking into a grocery store, they don't see someone who lives at a constant 6 on the pain scale, where a good day is a 4 and a bad day is a 9. They see a woman in her late 20s who looks perfectly normal. I own canes, but I only use them when I'm above a 7. Most days I tough it out. I have a full-time job and a part-time job. I stay busy because it helps with my anxiety. I also have a handicap placard for my car and I use it on the days I need it. About 6 months ago, I was moved to a new location closer to my home. I loved my new team. My boss, Amy, was great. My coworker, Casey, and I got along okay at first. We were both assistant coordinators, same position. Casey wanted a promotion badly and everyone knew it. I didn't want it. I already had a full-time job. I did this part-time gig to pad my savings and because I liked the work, so there was no competition, or so I thought. One Monday morning, I was running late because my pain level was at an 8. I had to use my cane to get from the car to the office. I was limping, moving slow, and I saw Casey standing by the door, coffee in hand, watching me. She didn't say anything, just smiled. I thought nothing of it. A few days later, I got an email from HR. They wanted to meet with me. I was confused. When I sat down with Amy and an HR rep, they told me that Casey had filed a formal complaint. She claimed I was faking my disability. She said she had video evidence of me walking perfectly fine outside of work, carrying groceries, jogging to my car, lifting heavy items. She said I was using the handicap placard fraudulently and getting special treatment. I stared at them. I said, "I have a legal disability. I have documentation. I filed with HR when I was hired." Amy nodded. She said, "We know, but we have to investigate the complaint." Casey provided video footage. My stomach dropped. Video footage. She had followed me outside of work. She had taken video of me without my knowledge. I didn't know where or when. I asked to see it. They showed me a clip. It was me at a grocery store loading bags into my car. I was moving quickly because it was cold outside. I wasn't using a cane. I had my pain under control that day, maybe a 5. To a normal person, I looked fine, but inside I was still hurting. I explained this. I showed them my medical records. I showed them the doctor's notes. I showed them the placard registration. They said they would take it under advisement. I left the meeting shaking. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Casey. Why would she do this? We weren't competing for the same promotion. I had made it clear I didn't want it, but maybe she didn't believe me. Maybe she thought I was a threat anyway, or maybe she just didn't like me. I'm black and I'm disabled. I live in Texas. I know how people can be, but I never expected this from a coworker. I filed a police report for stalking and invasion of privacy. Officer basically shrugged. He said, "She took video in a public place. It's not illegal." I said, "She followed me to my grocery store. She's not my friend. She's my coworker. She filmed me without consent." He said, "Still public." I left the station feeling helpless. I went back to work. I avoided Casey. She smiled at me in the hallways like nothing had happened. I told Amy I wanted to work remotely until the investigation was over. Amy agreed. I worked from home for 2 weeks. Then I got the update. HR said they reviewed the video and my medical documentation. They decided Casey's complaint was unfounded, but they wouldn't discipline her because they said it was a good faith report. I was furious. She had stalked me, she had filmed me. How was that good faith? I wanted to quit, but I needed the money, so I stayed. I kept my head down. Casey got the promotion a month later. She was my supervisor now. She didn't speak to me unless necessary. I started looking for another job. A few weeks after that, I got a call from the local news. Someone had leaked my story. I don't know who. The reporter asked if I wanted to comment on the disability discrimination. I said no. I didn't want the drama, but the story ran anyway. It mentioned my name, my condition, the video. People started messaging me. Some were supportive, some called me a fraud. One person found my home address and left a note on my door that said, "Stop faking, cripple." I called the police again. They said they couldn't do anything unless I could prove who left it. I bought a Ring camera. I started sleeping with a bat next to my bed. That was when I realized how far someone will go to destroy you when they feel threatened. Casey saw me as an obstacle. Even though I wasn't competing, my very existence, a disabled black woman who could do the job without needing a promotion, made her feel less than. So she tried to take me down. She almost succeeded. Eventually, I left that job. I found a new one working from home full-time. I don't have to deal with office politics anymore. I still have chronic pain. I still use my placard. And I still check over my shoulder when I'm in the grocery store parking lot wondering if someone is filming me. I don't know what happened to Casey. I don't care. But I learned something from that experience. When someone wants to hurt you, they will use whatever tool they can find. Your disability, your race, your marriage, your past, they will twist it, they will weaponize it, and you have to be ready to stand your ground even when it feels like the whole world is against you. I'm standing, I'm still standing, and that's all I can do.